Welcome. It's time to come home. You chose to be helpers as an important purpose in your life. Helping involves giving, and in giving, often we can become depleted. We forget that as human beings, we are not unlimited resources. Just like air and water and land, we cannot continually give and give without serious consequences. Coming home is an important reminder for us that we, like any other limited resource, need to be replenished. Taking time to pause, to make amends with our physical, emotional, and spiritual selves, to reconnect with what grounds us and gives us meaning outside of our giving roles. Time to come home is that resource, to replenish our entire being so that continuing to function in our giving roles can draw on more than an empty tank. And the purpose of this is for those of us in those giving roles to take that time for ourselves to replenish.
It's my pleasure to introduce Tom Roberts. Thomas Roberts is a retired psychotherapist and hypnotherapist. He has over 40 years of experience in clinical psychotherapy as a practicing Zen Buddhist for nearly 50 years. In 1992, he received lay Buddhist vows from the Thich Nhat Hanh. He's the author of the book, The Mindfulness Workbook, a beginner's guide to overcoming fear and embracing compassion. He is also the author of numerous articles published in international peer-reviewed journals. Tom has been an adjunct professor in the Department of Psychology at Viterbo University in La Crosse, Wisconsin, as well as the Department of Community Psychology, Counseling, and Family Therapy at St. Cloud University in St. Cloud, Minnesota, where he taught wellness and spirituality, mindfulness and recovery, and positive psychology, integrative approaches to healing, advanced counseling approaches, and advanced counseling approaches classes. He is also visiting lecturer at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, where he teaches courses in integrative approaches to mind-body healing. Over the past 40 years, Tom has become a leader in the fields of mind-body healing, clinical hypnotherapy, and mindfulness. He continues to present classes, workshops, and retreats locally as well as throughout the United States. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you. I'm back again to talk a little bit more about who I am and what my portion of this will be offering, as you will also hear from the three other folks who offer amazing resources as well. As Keely stated, I'm retired, going on 2.5, 3 years. I finally made it to that point, and have 4 grown kids and now 7 grandkids. One just arrived today. Um, and in my psychotherapy practice, I work predominantly with people that had what has been come to know as known as medically resistant conditions, conditions that typically don't respond to mainstream kinds of medical treatments. Conditions such as IBS and Crohn's disease, hypertension, migraine headaches, chronic pain, preparing for both surgery and for childbirth, um, recovering from surgeries and those kinds of things. Um, Typically conditions that have a very, very strong emotional component to to the symptoms. I work a lot with people that have suffered a great deal of trauma in a lot of different kinds of situations, and working with being able to address how the emotional connection is tied in with the physical symptoms, so that the body can have an opportunity to heal as the emotional trauma or the emotional impact has been able to be lessened. Um, and in addition to doing private practice, I had also years back worked at each one of the hospitals in La Crosse. I had worked also out at the Betty Ford Center in California um, before coming back to La Crosse and working in a private practice. So when we talk about coming home, one of the things that I really like to stress is um, being able to become more and more aware of how um, oftentimes secondary trauma has an effect on how our nervous system operates, how our immune systems operate, um, and how our neurological systems operate as well. And because oftentimes we are in such an overdrive mode that we don't recognize how our bodies are becoming seriously dysregulated. And what I mean by that is that the sympathetic or fight and flight aspect of our psychophysiology is chronically on. And as a result, it's kind of like a gas pedal on a car that gets stuck all the way onto the floor, and it's just going at a high speed all the time. We never let off on that gas, which allows the other part of our psychophysiology, the parasympathetic nervous system, or the healing part of our body, to actually function in a way that brings a sense of balance and healing. And as a result, things like our mood and our appetite and our sleep all become disrupted. So the kinds of things that replenish us um, are not able to really have their full effect. Um, so what I hope to offer is being able to not only recognize some of those kinds of signals of that dysregulation, of our constantly being on the go, having to be providing, but also some very useful kinds of tools, techniques, and methods that you can use on a daily basis that don't really take a whole lot of time, but have a tremendous impact on bringing that sense of regulation back. We'll be working with imagery, we'll be working with sounds, we'll be working with our breathing um, in order to help get that regulation back into place. Um, so I hope that you'll join all of us because we all have some amazing experiences and expertises in offering the kinds of things that uh, help us all come back home, come back uh, um, to ourselves and not constantly being giving out. And one of the things that I like to stress in closing here is it's a shift from living from the outside in to the inside out. Coming home means we get to start finding ways to live our lives from the inside out rather than always in a react mode to what's going on outside. So I hope you join us and welcome home.
Thank you, Tom. Now I'd like to introduce Heather Quackenboss. Heather Quackenboss is the Human Development and Relationships Educator at the University of Wisconsin-Madison Division of Extension in La Crosse County. Her focus is on well-being and culture and diversity, as well as community collaboration, compassionate communities, and mental wellness. Heather has worked for over 20 years in and with nonprofit agencies in La Crosse County, including Great Rivers United Way, La Crosse Community Foundation, and Cooley Council on Addictions. With her MS in therapeutic recreation, paired with her travels to the USSR, work in prisons, facilitation on ropes courses, and parenting 3 teenagers, Heather has found adaptability and empathy to be tools that apply theory to real life. She is here today to teach us some skills and tools so that we can better work with people who are different than ourselves. Heather Quackenboss, take it away.
Thank you, Keely, and welcome everyone. So we're going to talk a little bit about boundaries today. On this next slide, we'll see boundaries through values. And so many of us as helpers forget to, or we don't believe, we don't buy in to that put your own oxygen mask on first. We don't necessarily make sure our cup's full before offering it to someone else. So when we think of boundaries, we think of having to say no. And I want you just all to say that word right now, just no. And that feels so uncomfortable. So what we're going to add, and we'll go ahead a couple slides so we can actually just see that big old word no. And if we add no thank you, it's only a smidge better, isn't it? Most of us who are helpers really have a hard time with this term. As nice as we can even make it, we have a hard time with it. So what you'll see next here is we often like to compare ourselves to some ideal. We like to compare ourselves to all of those other folks we see helping. We like to compare ourselves to what we think we're supposed to be. And if we're a cookie like we are here, we're going to look at the ice cream and think those folks are so much cooler and better than we are. And when we do that, we really lose sight of what we have to offer. So, what we'll see is that when we look at our values, we can then look at what is important to us and what we can give and what we authentically can bring to help other people. So, I'd like you to just take a second right now. And these are only some of the words and some of the values that are out there. You may have some different ones. What I'd like you to think of is what in your life is your core value, not what you want it to be. We all want our core value to be something completely idealistic that's sometimes not achievable. What is that core value for you in your personal life, for your family, with your work? And from those words, what sticks out? What fits? For me, I used to think balance was the thing I needed to have. I needed to have a good work life balance. I needed to go to work and do my work and then come home and be a parent and a wife and have a clean house and do all of the things and have it all, right? We want it all. And it took a long time to realize that balance was frankly never going to happen. So the word that I pick from this list is harmony, because as someone who plays music, I know that I can play a seventh and it's not going to sound beautiful, but it's still a harmony. And sometimes my life is a seventh, and sometimes it's that perfect fifth, not as often as it's that seventh. So for you, what word matches you? And we're going to look at now why this is actually important. So when we have our value, we need to really think about what does it look like in our everyday life to live that value. So for me, what that looks like for harmony is shutting my computer off if I'm working at home, taking the notifications for email off of my phone after a certain time. That means having dinner with whoever actually can be at home at that time, whether kids are doing this or whether we have other things going on. Sometimes that looks like getting in my car and pretending to drive home from work so I can have a small transition. Sometimes that looks like, how can I play some actual music on the piano and just relax a little bit? So for me, for harmony, it's doing those little tiny things every day so I can achieve that. What happens when we know what that looks like in those tiny terms? Then we can really look at what are those things that I want to say yes to. So when I have my value and mine being harmony, what do I say yes to? So if someone calls me and says, can you meet at 8 o'clock at night? You know what? I would like some better harmony. I would like to say yes to my family. And here's why this is so important for us helpers, because we like to say yes. And we like to say yes to all the things. We like to say yes, and sometimes we tend to overpromise. And then we get overwhelmed and we can't pull through all of those promises that we said we could. So, what to live my value do I really want to say yes to? I want to say yes to more family time. I want to say yes to a little downtime. I'd like to say yes to those transitions so I know when I can end something and begin something else. And when I know what I want to say yes to, then I also can know what do I need to say no to. And then it becomes a little bit easier to really look at, all right, when I said yes to my family, I can say no to that meeting at 8 o'clock at night. When I just pretended to do a commute in my car or on my bike or walk around the block and pretend to get done with work and drive home like I would have prior to a pandemic where I was always working at home, now it's easier to say no to checking my email after I do that. So when you live your value, whatever that happens to be, what does that look like for you in everyday things? What do you want to say yes to make sure you uphold that value for you? And now what's easier to actually say no or no thank you to? And we'll be going through a few more of these because this is not easy. I practice boundaries all the time because I need to, because I want to say yes to all of the things. And if I can step back and say, whoop, let's wait and let's practice this, then it's going to be easier. And that's what I'll help you with because this isn't easy. And we want to help all of the folks. And when we do that, we also need to help ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. All right, we're going to turn it over to Jenna. Welcome, Jenna Schneider. Jenna Schneider has her degrees in school health education and a master's degree in public health education from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse. And she has worked for the Wisconsin State Health Department in chronic disease and prevention for over 5 years. She has coached the University of Wisconsin-Madison dance team for over 9 years, serving as a conduit for mentorship, leadership, and overall health coach for young women from across the nation. She has traveled with her teams and competed regionally and nationally for over a decade. Jenna is a certified professional coach from the University of Wisconsin-Madison's coaching program and is also the owner of Jenna Schneider Coaching LLC, where she mentors and provides individual coaching for individuals across the region and country. She successfully runs a podcast called She Leads Her Life, interviewing experts, professionals, and humans representing all walks of life, and especially during this pandemic. Jenna is an active wife and mother to 2 school-aged children. Welcome, Jenna.
Thank you, Dr. Rees, for that beautiful introduction. And thank you for being here on this webinar today. I know all of us are leading very full lives right now, even though they look very different during a pandemic. And so we are all just grateful that you are taking your time to be here with us today. During my session today, I'm going to talk a little bit about rhythms and compassion fatigue. Now, some of you might be asking, well, I've never really heard the term compassion fatigue before. So what is that? And compassion fatigue is the sense of feeling overwhelmed, hopeless, helpless, a powerless feeling when you're hearing about other people's suffering. It can bring up feelings of anger, irritability, sadness, and anxiety. And you can also have a sense of detachment from your physical and emotional surroundings. Now, on the slide, I did include compassion fatigue versus burnout. Many of us know what burnout is, and that can be typically a more gradual process that happens over time. Compassion fatigue, many of us can be experiencing if we are the helpers, if we are there caring for others during this pandemic, and a sense of overwhelm is coming up. Like I said on this one slide part, I said compassion fatigue can affect anyone who cares about others. And I know if you are on this webinar right now, you most likely are caring for others. Now, in this next slide, you will see a picture of a diagram of something you may see in a kindergarten class. Or if you have young kids at home, this may be something that might be up on their wall. Now, many of us adults and professionals may go by a paper planner, or you may have a planner in your phone that you adhere to, but many times that lists certain times of things in your day to day. Now, what this is, what rhythm setting is nuggets throughout your day. I like to call them golden nuggets that can only inspire you to be a better version of yourselves. But it also creates a sense of grounding and anchors throughout your day. Now, as you can see, this planner or rhythm setter, as I would like to call it, is there's 3 different pieces, and that's what I want to focus on today. Something that you can implement into your day in the morning, in the afternoon, and into the evening. Now, that can look very, very different for each of us. We all have different daily habits, routines, and also on a day-to-day basis, what we have to get done. But what I am challenging all of you today that may be suffering from compassion fatigue or are looking to improve your overall health and wellness is to really identify 3 areas that you can implement on a day-to-day basis that would enhance the day-to-day health of your overall well-being. Now, what I would like all of you on this next slide to take some time, take out a piece of paper and write out, what does your average day look like? From beginning to end. Not necessarily certain times, but what are different action items that you do on a day-to-day basis? And then take a minute to take a look at, do you currently have grounding anchors in your day that fill your cup? Now, I know with having 2 small children at home, my day often looks like getting up and getting breakfast for them and throwing in a load of laundry and then checking my schedule to see what clients I have coming up. But an anchor for me is making sure I have at least 5 minutes of quiet when I wake up to just kind of ground myself for the day, if that includes a meditation. And I also really try to get a workout in. That a workout is as much for my physical health as it is for my mental health. So that is a morning anchor for me. And then I would challenge you to, what is an afternoon anchor? There are some people that have a planned tea time during the day for 10 minutes to sit and journal. And then the same to replicate at night. How can you identify areas in your life where you need to add grounding anchors? I often do with my clients what you can easily Google. It is called a wheel of life. And those different areas, you can identify what type of anchors are really needed in your life right now. Grounding anchors oftentimes lead to good habits, and habits lead to change. But how do we keep a habit? As I tell many of my clients, accountability. Do you know that you are 500% more likely to be successful with a habit change, and you are 80% more likely to build the mental muscle needed to create a lasting behavioral change if you have an accountability partner or a professional coach? This is why I love my job and working with clients. We take apart and look through their days and what their goals and their strategies are to take their life to the next level. And so I just want to commend all of you for being here today. I hope that each of you can take some time to identify different rhythms, different anchors throughout your day. If you can just set aside 1 week to implement 3 different anchors into your rhythms throughout your day, I guarantee you, you will only improve your mental health as well as sometimes your physical health as well. So thank you so much for listening today. And again, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jenna. All right. It's really exciting to bring these experts and amazing just humans who are very real and very genuine together, because they're just very willing to share their absolute inner like tricks and tips and what's working with the populations that they're working with across the nation, and how they're helping individuals and communities, and especially during this time. So again, my name is Keely Rees, and I'm really glad to be here with you all today. I'm a full professor in the Department of Health Education and Health Promotion at the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, and I'm the owner of Keely Rees International Consulting. My research and work in the health field provide the foundation for advocacy, policy, and women's health in a variety of public health settings. My career has focused on the well-being of people and organizations. As a teacher, personal coach, workshop facilitator, mother, and wife, I have an extensive background in personal and organizational health. I love working with educators, health professionals, teens, young adults, and professionals of all ages and experiences. My work is grounded in compassion and enthusiasm of individuals and communities. I recognize how we are all in a work in progress and have the need for connection and empathy, and it's very evident in our homes and workplaces ever more today. And so we've gathered as a group to come together for you. And as Tom started us out, we are here to help you come home. And we recognize that this is a very dark and unknown time for many of you. And you are either essential healthcare workers, you are behind the scenes, you are homeschooling, you are healthcare professionals in hospitals, maybe you are in the community front lines. We're dealing with multiple pandemics at one time here in multiple sort of systems and organizations, and our homes look different across the nation. And so this becomes a weekly space for you to head into that unknown, feeling just a little bit more vibrant, feeling a little bit more like you can find your spark again. And those of you who started out 2020 thinking it was going to look one way, we recognize that it looks very different. And we don't know what the next month or the next month or the next month is going to look like for our children, for our communities, and for our nation. And so what that can feel like is disconnection. And what we want to do is bring you back to a place where you feel that you can come home to. And we know that that disconnect can leave us feeling depleted, disconnected, and it leads to overall impacts, as Tom, Heather, and Jenna have mentioned, in our health, but also in our families, from feeling very disconnected to our own bodies and then to our loved ones that we're caring for. So our hope with coming home is to take these three words and debunk them. And a lot of times today, even when you get back online, webinars, meetings, classrooms, and you might ask someone how they are. And those three little words are three of the most unuseful words in a time like this. And it's like putting on a mask and saying, I'm fine, literally, I'm fine. When we know below and underneath that mask is feelings of uncertainty and disconnect and overwhelm. And what that can lead to is zapping our joy, zapping our vibrancy. And we are wired for joy as humans. We are wired for connection. And the need for connection is even more upon us than any other time that many of us have lived through. And so we want to bring that back into your lives. And connection with yourselves or others, We want to help you find tools and real resources that are meaningful to you. So what may work for anchors for one of us may not work for you. We want to help you explore the anchors that work for you in your space, in your 8-hour, 10-hour, 12-hour shifts. And so coming home represents a way of sort of clearing the mental clutter, finding white space on your calendar or in your day, or sometimes it's in a very specific moment that can spark fun or joy or elements of bringing back this vibrant living. And it might not be that we get to live vibrantly 12 hours a day, but for that 10 minutes. And it might be 10 minutes at a time, pulling us out of that overwhelm and that maybe sometimes disconnected space that we're living in. And ask each of them to share other insights or one nugget about coming home with us that they would like to.
Stop. Just plain stop. If you're walking down a hall, if you're walking out to your car, if you're moving from the living room to the kitchen, just stop and feel what it's like just to be in that space. Not doing anything, not going anywhere, just plain stop. And a simple kind of thing like that is what we're all going to be able to provide for you, are these amazing tools that allow us just to kind of say, and take a break. So I hope you'll join us. This will not only be informative, but I hope it'll also be fun.
Heather.
So often we hear, oh, you should this, you should that. We do that to ourselves. I should this, I should that. We should on ourselves all day long. And when we stop, like Tom said, and take that breath, like Keely recommends, and look at what's important to us, like Jenna and I talk a little bit about, as well as find what fits us, it's going to change our life. And it's not this big thing. It's not like, oh, going out and finding our value and going out and finding this purpose and taking our knapsack like a hobbit and going and finding our ring. It's really more, all right, what do I love? What do I lean into when things are uncomfortable? And really determining what fits authentically and then learning how to do that a little bit more. And that's how we can start coming home to ourselves and not just all the stuff that we filled our lives with.
Thank you, Heather. Jenna.
Something that has been coming up for a lot of my clients, and just a piece of advice I would give, and something we'll be talking about in the trainings as well, is letting go of all the expectations that you had during this season of life. This season of life looks very different for all of us, but to take the picture that you had probably beautifully painted in your head and to give that a lot of grace right now, because most likely that painting is going to have to be repainted and reworked, and it still can be beautiful, but we just have to learn to look for the silver lining.
Think of us as your guides. Think of us as your facilitators on this journey. Many of you have been doing this for months now, 4+ months, this work, this intense behind screens, 10 hours a day, or in hospitals, or frontline work. You've been protesting, you've been doing advocacy work, you've been doing the work in your communities to figure out schools and universities, and what that does to our cells and our bodies and our communities. And this coming home is about a chance to anchor, breathe, settle in, and really approach self-care from a very deep perspective. Self-care is not going to be, Heather and I's favorite saying for this is self-care is not a bubble bath and a glass of wine. Self-care is digging in and figuring out, what is my body saying? What are the things that are happening in my brain right now that need assistance? And sometimes that looks like a lot deeper work than even what we will do in this class, that we would refer you to therapy or additional healthcare practitioners. So a lot of times we even feel like this is just the start. The coming home is the start of your self-care journey, and really looking at setting those boundaries and finding sparks of joy and moments to breathe and center and come home. And so think of this as a way to transition to from leaving a physical building and coming into your home space. Or some of us who do not leave home, how do I transition and take off this hat as teacher, educator, provider online, and then transition into home life, partner, parent, caregiver, dog walker, whatever it might be. And so coming home. Here's a little bit more. We have option A and option B for coming home. This is a personal training. This is an opportunity for you to engage in 8 weeks where you're able to work at your own pace. We will have weekly videos and modules where we will focus on one topic per week with multiple of us as providers. So insights from multiple of us, but basically one topic per week. Recorded practice opportunities. So maybe that week you're looking for something that's 10 minutes. Maybe that week you're looking for something longer that's 20 minutes or 30 minutes. You will have options to choose from and work through at your own pace during that week. You will have written opportunities as well. Some of you need to document or journal and have the experiential things happen to you at your own pace and not watching something. There will be those opportunities as well. We will use a Google platform for ease and transferability across many websites and web access. Right now, we will have more information at the bottom of this video. You will have a link to RSVP, and the 8 weeks is $197. Option B is that we open the door. If you like something that one of the 4 of us provided today, you also have the opportunity to work with one of us one-on-one. If you want to go into a deeper experience with the things that Jenna or Tom or Heather or myself provided, you will have an opportunity to connect with them and find out what those opportunities would look like as well.